Hello, and welcome to Pressing Buttons. I'm Hugo,
I'm Nick.
and we are here, episode 65. Another great week, another great episode of Pressing Buttons coming at you. Thank you for joining us, whoever's out there listening or viewing this. Quick reminder, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, wherever we are. Check our website, pressingbuttons.gg. Please don't forget to like and follow us and leave some comments. We love hearing from everybody. We love our community. We have such a great community. We love hearing from you, and we want to hear some more. So please go ahead and do that. That way we get more noticed. And the more notice we get, the more notice you guys get. And that's it for my little rant. We're going to dive straight into some video game news. First thing we want to talk about this week is actually a list. GQ released a list of the top 100 games. They did interviews with some developers, some influencers, some journalists, and they came up with the top 100 games. We're going to go over the top 10 games. We're also going to do our own top 10 games, and we're going to do talk about maybe some of the ones that weren't in the top 10 but were on the list as well that we thought were really good. So first we're going to go over the GQ's top 10 list that they got from all the journalists and the influencers and the developers, and then we're gonna see what we think about that. So we have at number 10 Half-Life 2, number 9 Dark Souls, number 8 Portal 2, number 7, Metal Gear Solid 1998 version. Number 6, Mass Effect 2. Number 5, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Number 4, Bloodborne. Number 3, Tetris. Number 2, The Last of Us. And number 1, Breath of the Wild. I'll start by saying that this is a very good list. Obviously, they kind of went very, very diverse. If you go online, we'll link it up on the show notes so you guys can check out the list as well and see what they put overall. But the top 10 definitely very varied games, different styles, and you can see why they put this as a top 10. Obviously, Dark Souls, Metal Gear, Mass Effect, Bloodborne, The Last of Us, and Breath of the Wild, and Tetris and all that stuff. Very, very diverse games. I totally agree with this list in a sense of I can see why they're in the top 10 and why generalists would pick. Very surprising to see Tetris in there. Obviously, a very revolutionary game, but I don't know if it kind of holds up in terms of genre defining or game defining or something that I would make it at least even in the top 3. I would have put it maybe like 20, 25, something like that. Good to see Dark Souls in there. Well, Nick and I are big fans of Dark Souls, so good to see that in there. Mass Effect 2, I played 1, I didn't play 2, but I know that one is like a big one for a lot of people, especially because they refined how 1 is supposed to, how 1 was, and they just made it better in terms of characters, story, and what you could do in the game itself. You also have Half-Life 2 and Portal from Valve, which both great games. I mostly played Portal 2, didn't really play Half-Life, but I know it's one of those that people really loved, and obviously they're waiting for Half-Life 3 or whatever it is. And then you got Bloodborne, which for me, you'll see on my list, it's one of my top ones. Definitely, I think it just kind of encompasses everything that From Software had been building up to that point and just kind of hit every single note that they were trying to do on that one. And then obviously their number 1, which got the most points from all the journalists and in terms from everybody that participated, and also got the most number 1s, is Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild, especially with Tears of the Kingdom being out right now, I think deserved the number 1 spot. It was very innovative, especially for a lot of people in terms of the Zelda formula. It was getting kind of stagnant, and to see where Nintendo went with the open world and everything that you could do in it, and the secrets that you could discover that people are still discovering up to this day, I think that just propelled it to being one of the best Zeldas and one of the best games ever. Your thoughts on their list, on GQ's list, Nick?
Was there anything that jumped out at you as being like offensive? It sounds like you're generally on board with their top 10, but at least from my perspective, when I saw that, there was one kind of game in particular where I'm like, how could this game not be on there?
Well, I would say not offensive, but Tetris is the only one that the top 10 that I said is the only one that seems out of place to me, just because, yes, it was innovative at the time, but I think because of obviously more recency bias in the games I played, I think there's a lot more games that have been more influential for developers and for everybody than that. Which one's the one that you're thinking?
Yeah. I think my game, and it's not even my number one game, but it's just like a game that I would expect to see on a top 10 list, but it's Mario 64 which is, I think it's not that far away. I think it's like in the top.
In the top 15, 20?
Is it? Okay. But either way, like just when I look at a top 10 list, is this like a game I expect to see on every top 10 list, and it wasn't there. But I don't know. It was kind of funny. Like other than that was kind of like the only cardinal rule that was broken. But when I see the list, I'm like, oh yeah, like maybe I have a similar observation as you with like Tetris. Like maybe that wouldn't be like, I kind of get why they would do that, but just in terms of how I would approach the list personally, like that wouldn't be anywhere close to my top 10. So, but with that, it's like, okay, that's like a reasonable list. Like, that's nothing to get too upset about. But what's interesting is, I think it's like a good list, but only one of those games is in my top 10. So it's like I have a very like completely different list, but at the same time, I can still like appreciate what this list represents as a top 10.
Yeah, and I like the way that they the criteria for this list which is basically just rank all these games, and then the closer they are to the top of the list, being number one, the more points they'll get. So like number one would get 10 points and so on and so on. And then everything else would fall into its place until they can accumulate the points. Couldn't really argue with Breath of the Wild, I would say. Everything else, I think it's more, they kind of lean more into what great games they are, whereas which you'll see from my list, I kind of lean more towards innovation and kind of games that defined the genre or changed it up or just brought something new that kind of elevated the games that I picked. So that's where I see a big difference. Obviously, with seeing like Half-Life and Portal 2, good games to me, but not necessarily like top 10. And obviously, like you said, with Super Mario 64, which they ranked at 18, it is kind of weird that they put it that far back, especially because it was such a defining game itself for that era. One of those big launches, Nintendo launches, and obviously it's Mario and how expansive it is and just 3D and all that stuff. I think it should have been lower. It should have been maybe at least in the top 10. And you can make a good case for at least it cracking the top 5 in terms of the revolution that it was. All right, so now we'll do our list. We'll just go over both our lists at the same time, and then we can discuss it. So for me, and this one was a little bit weird because I almost had Elden Ring at 10, but I didn't. So I just wanted to say that. I got BioShock at 10, Grand Theft Auto 5 at 9, Shadow of Colossus at 8, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare at 7, Red Dead 2 at 6, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater at 5, The Last of Us at 4, Final Fantasy 12 at 3, Zelda Ocarina of Time at 2, and at number 1, Bloodborne for me. What's your list?
Well, I can't react to.
Well, okay. React to my list.
I got to react to your list, dude.
Okay, react.
Like he just came in hot.
Tell me what you see from my list, and I will tell you why my list is the way it is. Before I tell you.
Wait, what?
Tell me what you see from my list in the way that I chose these games, and then I'll tell you why I chose these games.
I'm just going back to one of your criteria for the list was innovation and how groundbreaking a title was, and then you have Call of Duty 4.
If you don't think, I know you're not a big first-person shooter kind of guy, especially a war game, but I think Call of Duty kind of redefined the genre because at this point, a bunch of first-person shooters and military games have become so stagnant and kind of just very similar formulas. And I think Call of Duty kind of reinvigorated the formula. It introduced a very, very good campaign, one of the best single player campaigns that I think has ever been done, and especially with the the themes that it was doing, which is basically terrorism and global apocalypse and nuclear war and all that stuff. I think it did a good job of presenting that, and also the innovative gameplay in the multiplayer aspect of it, which we still see to this day in terms of like the perks and the maps and stuff like that. So yeah, you might hate on it and it might seem weird, but Call of Duty, it's up there, man. It's up there. What
Sure,
else?
okay.
What
Okay.
else? Give me more
That,
shots.
and then I think a positive surprise was Final Fantasy 12 being so high. So first
Yes.
of all, that was the game that you picked out of just all of Final Fantasy, and then the fact that it's number 3.
Yeah, so I know, and I may get a lot of slack from this because I know everybody's like favorite Final Fantasy is usually 7, but in my eyes, 7 is a good Final Fantasy. It's just not the best. Obviously, I think it was very groundbreaking because it was the first one to go into 3D. It did so well for the PlayStation. It put PlayStation on the map. It put, I would say, Square Enix back on the map after all those hits on the Nintendo to just be the first big major 3D title. But to me, not the best Final Fantasy overall.
What do you mean 3D?
With the 3D graphics.
That was Final Fantasy 10. Or no, that was Final Fantasy
7.
Yeah. Sorry. I thought you were talking about 12. I was just like, what are you talking about?
No,
Okay.
I'm talking about.
Sorry.
No. These are the things I'm saying all about 7. So that's why I think a lot of people really pick 7 as their favorite Final Fantasy. But to me, I think 12 is the best one overall so far. We'll see how 16 is. We're super hyped about that. But with 12, for me, it was just the characters were really good. The settings was really well, and I think I overall enjoyed the combat system way better than any other Final Fantasy, and the way that you could say this was the start of these RPGs kind of automated combat systems with your party, where you could set I forget the name of it. I believe it was a Gambit system, but you could basically
Yeah.
You could basically set your party to do actions triggered by different actions kind of thing. So if you were low on health, heal. If you wanted them to attack. If you wanted them to defend, or whatever. Like, this was the first one where I saw like really introduced really well to kind of push the RPG genre forward, in the sense of like no longer wait for this person to do this, wait for them to do that, and having to keep an eye on everything. I think that's why I put it overall better than any other Final Fantasy in terms of my top list. Obviously, I like all the Final Fantasies, but I didn't want to like put a whole bunch of Final Fantasies on my list, so 12 was my big one.
I agree. I see what you did, and I have a similar, like, I kind of had to hack how do I get Final Fantasy in my top 10 without it just being like listing 5 different Final Fantasy games. So you'll learn more shortly around how I approach that. But no, I love Final Fantasy 12. That's probably my favorite single player Final Fantasy. If I had to pick one, it wouldn't be the original Final Fantasy 7. It would either be Final Fantasy 12 or maybe the Final Fantasy 7 remake. Was pretty good.
Yeah. I would say I actually like the remake more than the original one.
Yeah, that might be could be a hot take.
Hot takes. We love the hot takes.
I did really enjoy the remake.
If you have
did
comments,
not really enjoy Intergrade, but
if you have comments about our hot takes, feel free to put them down. But let me go over real quick my list, and for each one, I'll give a reason. So for BioShock, I think it was a great story, really well done. This underground city with some weird views. I think that was really well done story-wise, so I really enjoyed it. And then the combat aspect of it being in first person, I think that was different, so that was really good. Grand Theft Auto 5, very innovative. I almost picked 4 just because I kind of I felt 4
you're just a New York asshole. Like,
yeah. Well, New York, and also I felt Nico's immigrant plight in Grand Theft Auto 4, but I do recognize that 5 very innovative, especially with 3 protagonists, and also the online aspect of it still has people in there. It's generating a lot of revenue for Take-Two and all that stuff, so people are still hooked on it. And just overall, it's a very expansive, very rich game where you're doing a lot of things, and it takes a long time. Shadow of Colossus, if you haven't played it, I think it's one of the best works of art in a video game. It's just boss battles if you think about it, but it's just done so well. The protagonist doesn't speak. and you're just killing these giant beasts, and you're kind of doing it. You feel kind of bad for it, but you're doing it. So that you got to play it to kind of feel it, I would say. So that's why I picked it. Call of Duty, I made my case. Hopefully Nick understands it now better than he did before he saw the list. Red Dead 2, great story, great gameplay mechanics that had never been done in terms of just like every little thing that you could do with the controllers, accidentally shooting your horse when you were just trying to pet it or something like that. Things like that touched it really well. And also the story of what's his name? Damn it. Arthur Morgan, just kind of, and the whole posse, just their story, and kind of, I liked Red Dead 1, but I always thought it didn't have that emotional appeal. I think Red Dead 2 brought it in tenfold, and it also kind of made me care more about Red Dead 1 in that sense, because I understood John Marston more. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, just because I think it was very innovative. Metal Gear Solid overall is very confusing, but they did fix it up by this point, I think, to kind of reset the line, but just made everything that had made Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 kind of work really well with the characters and the world, the Cold War era and all that stuff really well. The Last of Us, obviously, I think it was a very big jumping point in terms of you play video games a lot for the fantasy worlds and just kind of getting out of the normal. You don't want to be in the human world, in the real world, I would say. But The Last of Us, I think, was the beginning of you starting to see these kind of games that are kind of more grounded in reality and being primarily focused on the story and all that stuff. Even though I think the combat was really great as well, and the multiplayer and all that stuff. Final Fantasy 12, I explained myself on that one. Ocarina of Time, always been a big Zelda fan, always loved them. I think this one, though my second favorite is A Link to the Past, but Ocarina of Time just slightly beat it because it was that open world 3D kind of thing, and you were able to do so many things, and it felt massive, which is the only way you could go. You could just go bigger. And then Bloodborne, for those that haven't played it, I know it's a tough game. It's not on everybody's plate, but it is one of the best games in terms of story. Even though it's a little bit convoluted, once you understand, it's really good. The combat itself, where the aggressiveness is paid for in terms of success, I think that's really good. And just, I think it led to From Software just being masters of their craft, having perfection, and kind of like putting all their work from Dark Souls and Demon Souls into this. And obviously, Elden Ring kind of surpassed that in terms of open world, but I just think Bloodborne is such a tight little nice package that I think I prefer it more than Elden Ring. But Elden Ring almost made it though. So that's my list.
How is Destiny not on here?
The only reason Destiny's not on here is just because it's not been a constant. I would Destiny is in the top 15, I would say, just for innovation.
Okay, so it's number 11.
No, Elden Ring is number 11. I would say maybe Destiny 12. Just I would have put it in the terms of live service game, very innovative. It has had its ups and downs. If it was a more of a consistent high of like great story, great characters and all that stuff, I would have put it probably lower. But because there's been parts of Destiny where the characters suck, or there's like 2 or 3 characters that are interesting, everybody else sucks. The story's been up and down. They recently have just been kind of fixing everything and made it coherent. So that's one of the reasons I didn't put it up there. But in terms of like gameplay, I think it is one of the best. Obviously, Bungie coming from doing Halo and all that stuff, and how great Halo felt when they were doing it, and obviously how much the gunplay in Destiny people love. I think I would have put it if it was a whole package. I just can't put it for one thing. All right, now let's give us your list.
Okay, you ready? Do I get a drum roll, or do I just go for it?
No, if I didn't get a drum roll, you do not get a drum roll.
Well, you didn't ask for one. So.
Well,
all right, number 10, The Witcher 3. Then Fortnite, which is I expect to be a controversial pick, but I'll get into that in a little bit. Final Fantasy 14, Dragon Quest 11, Metal Gear Solid 3, Ocarina of Time, Phantasy Star Online, Mario 64, Super Metroid, and Demon Souls in number
Yeah.
one.
Wow. So good list. I love all the games on here. Obviously, different lists. I think you kind of lean more on the RPG side, which very surprising, but
Just love playing roles,
yeah,
man.
but also not surprising. I do like that in our top sixes we have Metal Gear Solid 3 and Ocarina of Time. I think we do have like a good taste for those. We think those are really good. Obviously, you're a big proponent of Mario 64. You put it in the top three, which I applaud. And then Demon Soul, I could definitely see that for my Bloodborne. I almost said Demon Souls. I know they had Dark Souls on GQ's list at number 9, but I think Demon Souls was the originator and also was kind of Dark Souls 1.0, whereas Dark Souls is Demon Souls 2.0. Whatever,
Yeah.
if that makes sense to you.
Yeah. No, I agree. I kind of, what influenced that decision was the fact that it was kind of like the original, the OG Soulsborne formula. So, and I do like I beat the PS3 version and also the remake on PS5, and I do just kind of like the like smaller, it's not this like giant expansive open world like there is in Elden Ring, which is also great, and I love that game. But for some reason, there's part of me that just kind of prefers the more like quaint, world that they've set
Yeah,
up with Demon Souls, and it's just
kind of
like
traveling from world to world as opposed to this one big interconnected
yeah,
world,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah.
not bad, but it just feels better that you have like these 5 or 6 separate worlds.
Yeah, 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 something like that. So yeah, I guess that was just kind of like a plus one here. Like I think we maybe had like a similar approach, which is maybe I'm just going a little bit further back, where for the same reason you were thinking more like Bloodborne over Elden Ring. I just kind of went all the way back to Demon Souls. And I think there's a bit of a nostalgia factor as well, where so when the PS3 version launched, it was published by Atlas in the US, and there was just like a lot of buzz around this game as being this like wildly difficult, like weird game. And then I just bought it based on that. And then I remember like playing the game and being like, this is fucking stupid, dude. Everything's cheap. Like these fucking enemies coming out of nowhere and killing, like one-shotting me. Like this game's bullshit and I hate it. And then like, how I think it wasn't until like the early days of quarantine where I was like, okay, I've been buying all these goddamn From Software titles, because I would always like it happened every time. I know I bought Bloodborne too. I just like couldn't play it because of the frame rate and like frame pacing issues. But it wasn't until quarantine where I like actually like got back into all of these games. And there's just something I like about how turned off I was by Demon Souls, only to then like come back to it and like actually appreciate the game. So I've beaten that game, several times by now, but yeah, so I think that's up there. Another thing I wanted to call out is there's 3 Nintendo games in the top 10.
So you're really not a Nintendo hater.
Which I'm really not a Nintendo hater. That's what I've been trying to tell you throughout this entirety of the podcast, but
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I did have a similar story to you in terms of Demon Souls. Like I think everybody kind of just goes into it in a weird way. A friend of mine ordered it from PlayAsia, and then he got 2 copies. So he's like, "Here, have it." And I was like, "Okay." And it was tough in the beginning, but I think we both do like a challenge, and we got back into it and really enjoyed the heck out of it. I did find besides your Nintendo love. That now we know you are a Nintendo lover, so you've made peace. I did find Fortnite. I can see why, but if you could give us the gist of at least in the top 10.
even I'm conflicted on that one. Like I just felt like it had to be somewhere in there. Definitely not like a top five, but I wanted to be somewhere on the list. Uh, I mean, just like I play it a lot, so I think there's that's certainly one consideration. I think basically every game on here, I've played it. Like I've beaten it more than once, or I've just put a ton of hours into it. Maybe with exception of like a live service game for obvious reasons, but so I played a lot. I think it's just kind of more like maybe the innovation, groundbreaking angle of it, where I think they've done one of the best jobs, if not like the best job, in terms of uh, really kind of helping define what it even means to be a live service game in terms of constantly creating new content, ways of playing the game. So I think there's like maybe it's more like my business that the business model element of it is like maybe creeping in a little bit too much, but I do think they pioneered a lot of that in a cool way. I think if the other thing to throw in here is if zero build mode wasn't a thing, there's no way this game would be on there. But it's because they introduced that specific mode. I think that's why it kind of creeped up in a high position.
So I just checked on their list, and they have Fortnite at 81. And I kind of lean more towards your reasoning for it. It definitely, I think, honestly, if you think about it, out of all the games on this list, I think the most people have played Fortnite. If you were like all these people, these 300 people that voted or whatever, everybody played Fortnite. Whether they played it for a couple matches or they're still playing it, I think this would be the most involved game out of all of them. So definitely, I do totally agree with you in terms of it being at the top, in terms of innovation, in terms of playability. Like you said, that zero build mode kind of propelled it so it reaches a bigger audience. So I can see why you put it. Well, I can see now why you put it in the top 10. Um, I I'm still a little bit shaky on battle royale type games, but it is a fun and enjoyable game, and they do it so well. So I'm on that boat. I do see here you do have Fantasy Star Online. What is that about?
That's a deep cut, right? So I think so that this is the Dreamcast version, and so there might be some nostalgia influence here as well, but it was the original version on the Dreamcast. Back then, online games on consoles like basically didn't exist. I think there might have been some attempts, but I think Dreamcast was kind of the first console to kind of push it more, particularly with like broadband internet and all that. So actually having like high speed internet and being able to connect your console to that was like cutting edge technology back then. And the game that I most played that was Fantasy Star Online. So that was kind of my first, which I think today, it's like relatively common to have like your like 1,000-hour game. Like I used air quotes there, but just like a game that you just play like hundreds and hundreds of hours. So I think for you, that's Destiny. Maybe there's one or two other ones, but my current version of that is Final Fantasy 14, which we can talk more about that one, that pick as well. But I think Fantasy Star Online was like kind of my first taste of that. So in terms of it being like an online multiplayer game, you're just meeting up with, making new friends in this online world and dungeon crawling and, grinding and optimizing, so it's like all that stuff. And I just thought it's like a very pretty game. Like I like the aesthetic of it, and also the music is really good. So that's it.
No, yeah, I totally agree with you. Especially in terms of, like you said, those games that you didn't really have those games that you spend hundreds of hours on before, unless you were replaying it, obviously. Whereas now you have so many games that are live service or just have so much content that you could repeat. Obviously, like you said, Final Fantasy 14. I have Destiny. Obviously, Monster Hunter. Obviously, Fortnite and stuff like that. You just keep putting hours and hours and going back to it. Why did you put Final Fantasy 14 out of all the other ones in terms of favoritism.
Versus other Final Fantasy games, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, this was, as I kind of mentioned earlier, like this was like my hack because I feel like there's,
it's your Highlander. There can only be one.
yeah, like I only wanted there to be one game, and I feel like because Final Fantasy 14, the way it's set up, it's, I don't know if homage is the right word, but there's kind of like, a lot of different elements from all the different Final Fantasy games. So there's almost kind of like Final Fantasy 14 pays respects to all the other Final Fantasy games, and so because of that, I kind of feel like I'm getting like representation of more than just one Final Fantasy game. So I also just played it like a lot. Like it's easily like a top 5 most played games. So put in a ton of hours, completed not all of the content, but like all of the main story quest content. Just had a really good time with it. So if I had to pick a non online Final Fantasy game, kind of what I was saying before, it would be tough. Like I think it would probably be Final Fantasy 12 or Final Fantasy 7 remake. But that's tough, dude. Like
Yeah, it's tough because
I like a lot of them.
a lot of people really like 6 because 6
Yeah,
it has a great story and all that stuff.
6 is up there. Yeah.
So and people like 9. Like we could go on and on about the Final Fantasies just because it's different for everybody. There's something that's just knocks it out of the park for
So I feel
everybody.
like I'm kind of like cheating a bit, where I'm just like removing myself from that like thought process of which Final Fantasy game is best and just picking online and
Yeah, we should have just put all Final Fantasies as a number.
yeah, just in chronological order,
Yeah,
just be like
yeah.
my top 10 is exactly
and
every.
that would also be endlessly discussed.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you: is there any games that are you surprised that weren't in the top 10, or that you noticed from the list that were much lower, or just omitted overall? I'll give you an example. For me, I was very surprised that Skyrim wasn't up there as high, just because I know it's ported so much. I think it's in like 20, 25 different consoles or whatever, or places you can play at, but just because it was very innovative in terms of everything that you could do in the world and all that stuff. You can also say Halo didn't rank that high in there as well. It's just very weird to see those type of games, but you can also say with that it's just like sign of the times where it didn't hold in terms of people remembering and all that stuff, because I do remember Halo being of that era of like everybody the beginning of that online era where everybody could play together, or you could bring it to school and play with your friends, or do local LAN parties and stuff like that. So maybe it kind of stayed at that time, and obviously the last one not doing so well kind of doesn't do it any favors. Any ones that you think were missed or should have been ranked lower, or that obviously besides Mario 64?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think Halo was a difficult one for me, where there was part of me that almost wanted to put that in my like Fortnite slot. So maybe there's a bit of recency bias happening with myself. But yeah, I think there's an element of just based on how that franchise has evolved, or maybe hasn't evolved. I think maybe people are getting a little bit soured out on that franchise, and maybe that's why that game's probably could be like lower than you would expect. But for me, like, yeah, there was a it almost made the top 10, but specifically because of the original Halo on Xbox, and that more or less being the foundation of my college experience, because I played that game. I played that game a lot, and it's just it's an awesome game. The other one, I don't. Yeah, like Halo. I think was maybe kind of similar with some of the Bethesda games, where at the time they came out, people were like, "Oh my god, like open world, you can do anything," and I feel like those games don't hold up as well. And then you can debate like whether that's fair or unfair with in context of these lists, but I think that's just kind of the psychology of it, where I think maybe people are just kind of like downvoting those games in their minds because of it like not really holding up well if you were to pick it up today. And you know, the games are still like playable and fine, but you would really need to do like a lot of mods and stuff like that to, I think, to make it a little bit more enjoyable. I mean, the one for me, this is just kind of like riffing off of my own list, but like Fantasy Star Online is not even in the top 100. So like, I think, so that one jumps out. I don't think any Dragon Quest games are in the top 100
no Dragon
either, right?
Quest either. Yeah.
So no Dragon Quest, no Fantasy Star Online, and no Demon Souls, but I think they have other From Software
They just have Dark Souls and
so
Bloodborne. Yeah.
you know, that's fine. Like I just kind of had like a different philosophy with how to represent From Software in my top 10, but that's kind of interesting, right? Like no Dragon Quest.
Yeah, it's very weird, and like you said, it's more of the times thing, because 25 years from now, it could be a completely different list. And I think for us, we did try and kind of go back and do more of an era type thing, where we have Ocarina of Time, Shadow of Colossus, Metal Gear, Zelda, Bloodborne, all that stuff. They are newer, but in terms of just like the innovation thing, that I think that's where our list does kind of makes it a better list, because we did kind of go with innovation and what it brings to the table as a game, whereas they went for more like, this is a great game, you know, type of thing, because obviously different people, different criteria for great games. And the sad thing is that like kids, well, I was about to say kids these days.
These damn kids.
Yeah. Now I'm sounding old as hell, but just like I played Ocarina of Time, but you know, it's not like something where people are running to the store like, oh, I got to play this just because I hear it's great. Yeah, you hear it's great, but do you want to put yourself through those Nintendo 64 graphics and stuff like that? Like, that's the sad part of it, where a lot of people will be missing out on these type of games that are great games in their own right, but they just don't appeal to like the graphics of this day and age or the way they run and stuff like that. But yeah, any last thoughts on this list or anything like that?
I think that's it. Maybe the other one is not surprised. Breath of the Wild's number one. It's not on. I don't think it's on either of our list, right? Or
it's well, because we did the same thing. We didn't want to overtake any other Zelda, because we both have, you know, we both played, I think, all the Zeldas. And for me, Ocarina of Time, even though Breath of the Wild might be the better one, I think Ocarina of Time just overall completes me better than Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
it completes me.
That's a tough one.
And
Ocarina
also,
of Time completes me.
Yeah, and also, which we'll discuss in a little bit when we talk about Tears of the Kingdom. I'll let you guys know why I would prefer Ocarina of Time over the other ones. But yeah, if you guys have any opinions, which I know you guys will, about this list, please join us on Discord. You can access it through pressingbuttons.gg, our website. If you go there, you can link up into our Discord if you're not there yet, and give us your top 10 list, or let us know what you agree with or what you don't agree with. We all like civil discourse, and sometimes uncivil discourse.
I'm anticipating a hostile YouTube comments section.
Bring it.
That's what I want it.
You might change our mind, but probably not.
Yeah. Maybe one final thing is, which maybe I kind of already talked about it, but I think basically for as long as I can remember, like anytime anyone asks me this question of, hey, what's like your number one favorite game, I would always be, it's Super Metroid. Like Super Metroid, next question. Like I never had to think about it. And so demons like that, like I just maybe like months ago kind of came to this conclusion of like, okay, I think it's got to be a From Software game at number one. I think that's kind of like debunked Super Metroid as my number one. So I just want to throw that out there. That's like a very, very recent decision that I made after years and years and years of Super Metroid being my number one.
Now, if they spruced up Super Metroid to a newer version, just like they did Demon Souls, obviously with the PS5 remaster, whatever. If they did that to Super Metroid, do you think that would switch it out or no?
Nah, they wouldn't do that. I mean, I think it's 2D, you know.
Yeah, but they make it, they make it look like Dread. Like if they just made the whole thing
I thought that
shiny.
I hated that game. So did we never talk about this? Metroid Dread? Like I despise that game.
All right.
Yeah. I was like
I enjoyed it, but okay.
I was like devastated by that.
Oh, okay. I mean, well, that's what I'm saying. If they were you devastated because of the gameplay, or were you devastated because it didn't look
just
good?
That's a whole other podcast episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
But either way, yeah. If it's just like a remake, it's not. It's less about like the remake of it. It was more of just the whole Soulsborne genre, and me. Maybe that's more specific to me about getting into that relatively late. Where again, that was really the quarantine at the beginning of quarantine, and just needing things to do to keep myself occupied. And I'm like, hey, I have these 5 From Software games that I've bought over the years and would play for an hour and quit. And so I just kind of really invested into them. And so I guess maybe like me playing all those games, like that's something that started really happening maybe like, I don't know, like 3 years ago or whenever that whole thing started. But in terms of deciding that should be upranked over Super Metroid, like that's something that's happened in the last few months as I've internalized, all these From Software games and all that.
Yeah, every couple of years you just got to internalize, make sure your top 10 list is current.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because
people like I get asked this question.
Well, now that I think about it,
regularly, or like, hey, what's your number one?
Yeah,
like, people find out I'm a game, like, what's your number one game? And I'm like, Super Metroid. And they're like, never heard of it. Bye.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Now that I realized this came up, I was like, damn, I gotta have a list ready at all times.
Yeah. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Wow.
Yeah. There you go.
Do you know what mine is? You know what mine is.
No.
You don't?
When you say it, probably. No.
No? American Psycho.
Oh, that's right. You put me on the spot. I knew the
answer, and I knew you had like the deer in the headlights. I was like, all right, well, he knows it, but he's not going to say it.
Yes, Nick is a psycho.
I love the reaction when I tell people, they're like, oh my God. Like, if they don't know what the actual movie is, like they just assume I'm some like horror, like
they assume
aficionado guy.
You're Patrick Bateman.
Yeah, but so people who know the movie and like what it's all about, then like but like people who have never seen it, they're just like, okay, this guy's very weird. And I'm like,
he's a murderer. He has bodies in his closet.
Yeah.
All right, so that does it for the list. Like I said, make sure you guys hit us up on our Discord or in the YouTube comments or in our Spotify, Apple, whatever comments. Make sure you guys let us know what you think of the list, what your list is. We definitely would love to hear from you. All right, and the next thing we want to talk about is Tears of the Kingdom. I personally have not purchased the game, but I know Nick has, and he has some thoughts on that, which we'll get to. But going back earlier to the top of the list, and the reason I put Ocarina of Time and not Breath of the Wild is the main reason being I like more of the linear Zelda games. I like Wind Waker, I like Ocarina, I like Link to the Past, where kind of the game directs me to go to each dungeon and do my thing. That liberty of Breath of the Wild, even though I think it's a great thing for the game, definitely not for me type of thing. So I haven't been in a rush to get the game, but I know it has been getting great receptions. A lot of people have been making a lot of weird contraptions. They've been building robots. They've been building robots with dicks that shoot fire. Sorry, kids. Tanks. Different stuff. So it's good to see the community really embracing the game. Obviously, Nintendo knocks it out of the park whenever it's one of their mainline franchises, and it's been getting good reception. There has been some complaining because of the internet, obviously. People are complaining about the 30 FPS, comparing it to Redfall, having this whole thing about how people are giving so much crap to Redfall because of 30 FPS and how bad it is, and not really giving a lot of slack to Nintendo and the team because of the FPS of Tears of the Kingdom. So that, from what I've seen, I'll say I know what I'm getting into. When I get a Nintendo Switch game, when I got Breath of the Wild, and if I ever get Tears of the Kingdom, I know I'm getting 30 FPS game. I know not gonna get a game that's supposed to be this shiny thing that works perfectly, especially for everything that they're trying to do in such a small package. But I didn't sign up for that for Redfall, so screw that. All the haters and all that stuff.
Nintendo also didn't show and all the marketing materials didn't show a version of it running on PC and 60 frames per second.
Yeah, so to all the criticism for that, there's no need.
Yeah.
You've been playing the game? What do you think of it? Can you give some comparisons between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom? What's better? What's worse? Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's been good. It came out on Friday, and what I usually try to do is when I'm living in New York, which I've done for I don't know 12 or 13 years or something like that, with a break in between. But whenever I was living in New York, anytime there's a big Nintendo first party title launching, I try to go to the Nintendo New York store in Rockefeller Center. Even though it's just like generally a huge shit show, and I don't know, it's just kind of fun just to be surrounded by other Nintendo fanboys.
If you live in New York, you don't go to any of these areas. Times Square, Statue of Liberty, Rockefeller Center, stay away.
The area is awful, but it's still like, so it's definitely like a tourist store, but I don't know, it's just like a thing I started doing when I first moved to New York. Or I guess, I don't know, just whenever I was living in New York and they opened that store. And the thing that got me going there consistently is they almost always give you like random free shit that you can only get at that store. And I think you probably know what I'm going to mention, but it's the Donkey Kong tie that I got.
Yeah, your awesome Donkey Kong tie.
I think that was for Tropical Freeze. So on the Wii U. So yeah, so that was a while ago, but. They just give you random goodies when you buy it there. So I always just try to buy it at the Nintendo New York store, but I did not on Friday. So I mean, this has probably got to be one of the most hyped Nintendo releases of all time, like probably.
I think it definitely way more hyped than Breath of the Wild was, and that was hyped as well.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe like some Pokemon titles, people are going crazy for it, but either way, definitely a very, very much anticipated title. They have this whole like reservation system where if you wanted to buy it at the Nintendo New York store, you had to like get a time slot and come in. They did like a midnight launch event on Thursday, but I missed all that, so I was just like, I'm just gonna wait for all these like reservation periods to be done, and then I'll just swing by and grab a copy, and it should be fine. But that was not on the cards. Like I showed up after all the reservations, and there was still just like an army of people, like lines around the corner. People were saying they were waiting in line for like an hour and a half just to be able to like buy this game. So I literally just went around the corner to Best Buy and just bought it.
Hey, smart man.
Yeah. So, because usually with most games, I just buy it on Amazon and get launch day delivery. But I don't know, I was trying to make it more of an event, but it just wasn't going to happen. I'm too impatient to wait in line that long to buy something that I can easily get.
Should have kept there 3 days like the kid who got the first one. Nah. You're not that big of a Nintendo fan.
I'm not that big of a Nintendo fan. So it was fun. So I was still able to get. I didn't go home empty-handed. I was still able to get a copy of the game. And I think maybe we've talked about this before, but I don't trust Nintendo Digital with anything. So I'm still buying physical Nintendo games for the most part. So because I'm sure someone would be like, oh, well, you could have downloaded the game while you're waiting in line. It's like, I need to
look for that Wii shop and the DS shop.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so there's maybe a little bit more information than you actually cared about, but that was my experience I was trying to build for getting this game, and then playing it on Friday, and yes, I played it. I played it quite a bit on Friday and a ton yesterday. Like I had basically no plans this weekend, so perfect timing. So I played it a ton yesterday. Yeah, I mean it's great. If you liked Breath of the Wild, then this is a slam dunk purchase. There's definitely performance issues. It's like the resolution is it's 10. Like I don't even remember the last time I played a game at 1080p, but I guess it was whenever the last time I played the Switch, but that's been a while. So it's 1080 and then 30 frames per second. I think is generous. Like it's like mostly 30 frames per second, but there's definitely plenty of drops, and so there's two angles of that, right? One is just like, okay, well that's shitty and not enjoyable, but then there's also the angle of like, okay, well this hardware is very old and this is a giant, like an absolutely huge game. So then there's like, oh, it's actually kind of impressive that they're able to get this game playable at all on this system. But so I kind of buy both angles, but as you know, I'm very much of the like 60 or 120 frames per second 4K or bust. So but I've been able to just like work through it, so it's fine. It is what it is. Like that's just kind of where I've landed. It's like
If that is not the snobbiest thing I've heard from you when it comes to a video game, it's the snobbiest. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to our listeners and viewers.
No, like this is. I think that's like unanimous. Like no one's being like, oh, it's runs perfect. Like no one,
yeah, but
no
like,
one's saying that.
my perfect eyes at 120 FPS and 4K.
When I was played a lot of that game yesterday, and then I came back to my PC gaming rig to check out Honkai Star Rail, and I was just like, whoa, like what is this? Like it's fluid character motion. I think that's just at 60, so they cap it at 60 frames per second, I'm pretty sure, and for Hoyoverse games, so like that's a stable 60 in 4K is like I couldn't like believe it. I was like, what the hell is going on my screen?
Yeah,
if anything, it's making me like appreciate PC gaming when PC games are actually launched in a not shitty state.
No, but it sounds like you said, you're able to play the game. It's not an unbearable experience where you're like, fuck this shit, I don't want to play it anymore type of thing.
Yeah, so far, yeah, it's been okay. Other than just me griping about, because I'm a PC gaming snob, but it's been fine.
Yeah, and I've seen some people stream it, a lot of big streamers, and they seem to be doing fine. They're enjoying it, and it works, which is ultimately what you want out of a game, to mostly work.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the more positive angle to it, where it's like, okay, well, at least the game it's not perfect, but it's playable, unlike some other pretty big releases that have been coming out. So, kudos to Nintendo. So yeah, that's kind of the performance front, and then more on the gameplay side. I said if you like Breath of the Wild, I think you're gonna love this. It's a lot of the core mechanics are still there. There's a lot of new interesting things as well. So I think, and they've been featuring all these in the gameplay showcases, but it's cool to actually just get your hands on it. But Ultra Hand, that's the ability to like just kind of combine objects together. I've been spending a lot of time with that, just trying to build whatever dumb. And I think before we started recording, I think were highlighting a couple of examples of people building like very impressive, nice looking things, and I'm like, that's not my approach at all. My approach is just like the dumbest possible thing that gets the job done. So it's like these super bootleg, things that I'm building. But so that's been fun. I think maybe the biggest one so far. So obviously that's a big mechanic. The other big one that I think changes the game quite a bit is, I think it's just called Ascend. So that's the one where they've shown where you're like maybe like in a cave or something, and you like go through the ceiling. So that's been a lot of fun to use. It also takes away not all of the climbing, but it takes away a lot of the need for needing to climb everything, which I think became a bit of a chore in the original Breath of the Wild, where you're just spending so much time climbing. So I think this kind of helps address that. One pro tip is I've also like forgot pretty regularly like that's even like an ability that you can use. So if you get stuck somewhere, when in doubt, ascend. Like just be like, oh yeah, like where can I ascend somewhere? Like that's just been a thing that I've kept forgetting. And the solution's almost always like I just gotta find like where, particularly like in some of the dungeons and some of the maps, like you just need to know like how to ascend through it. So and then the other one I haven't used as much. It's called Recall. So that's the time based one where if like I think in the marketing materials they showed like a rock dropping from one of the sky islands, and then you jump on it and hit Recall, and it like sends you back up into the sky. So it's super cool. I just haven't got far enough into the game to mess with it too much, but I'm sure that'll be an interesting one too. So yeah, more fun. More fun mechanics, bigger world. Yeah, I've been having a really good time.
It seems like do you get these like early on? Because it seems like you've been able to utilize them. Maybe not too much, like you said with the recall, but like you've been using these a lot. Do you get them early on?
Yeah, they might have. I'm trying to recall. I think with Breath of the Wild, it took quite a while before you got the glider. So I feel like they've maybe accelerated some of these like core gaming mechanics. So you get them pretty quick. So you're kind of on a fairly linear path, collecting these abilities in the early game, and then after that it kind of opens up. And now I just now got to a point where I'm like, oh, I can really go on a bunch of different paths here, and which path do I want to choose? But it's, I probably played the game for like, I don't know, 10 hours, 8 to 10 hours, something like that. So yeah, so pretty good though. Yeah.
So sounds like a buy so far. So can't wait to hear your full review once you finish it, because I will probably not be playing it for a while.
It's gonna take a while, dude.
Yeah.
It's a beefy game.
And there's also more stuff coming out. So.
Yeah, I think I saw some post somewhere that said it's going to take like 50 hours or so to complete the game. I don't.
Or you could just speed run it in 94 minutes like that.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, this is probably going to be like a 70 to 80 hour game for me if I were to guess, just because I kind of play. And usually the way this definitely happened with Breath of the Wild, where I'm like, I'm exploring every square inch of this world, and then I'm kind of like, okay, I just need to beat this game.
I just gotta get to the next part. I gotta stop looking for shit.
Yeah. So I think some version of that will happen to me at some point. But right now, I'm definitely like, I want to check out everything. I think it'll really be, if I haven't beaten the game by the time Final Fantasy 16 comes out, that'll be my like catalyst for starting to shortcut stuff and just try to like get the game done.
It's a little push.
Yeah.
All right. Next news we want to talk about is Diablo 4. Obviously, right now they're doing I believe a stress test to kind of test the servers for when the official game releases for the early adopters on June 1st, and for everybody else June 6th. But they basically they're doing well. From our good friend Zach, he tried the stress test. Apparently, it went like shit. So it's a good thing they're testing it now, and hopefully it'll be fixed by then. But they also announced some information on what they're going to do for the game and the seasons. It looks like they're trying to adopt something akin to Destiny, whereas they'll be doing seasonal content every quarter. You'll be able to buy free But well, you'll be able to get a free pass, which you can get 27 rewards for 100 levels. You can do the premium battle pass, which will be $10, and that'll give you a reward for each level. And then you can buy a third one, which will be the accelerated battle pass, which will cost 25 and let you skip 20 levels. I'm kind of interested in this. Diablo hasn't really been on my radar because Street Fighter 6 is coming out around that time, and then Final Fantasy 16 is coming out a bit after that. But after hearing this news, especially because I did enjoy the last one, the last Diablo, I think it is kind of popped up on my radar more in terms of something that I would want to play and just kind of play co-op with other people. And especially if they have success with the battle pass, as Destiny does with the cosmetics, with the items, and they're kind of trying to do a theme thing where, I guess once you finish the main campaign and whatever the story for that is, that they will continue different storylines or just different areas that you can explore and stuff like that. So it has kind of piqued my interest in Diablo 4 in terms of a new game to play. So we'll see if it's good enough. Obviously, I'll probably wait it out just because I don't want to be part of whatever jumble they got up in the beginning of nobody being able to play the game and connect anywhere or anything like that. So hopefully it has a smooth launch and it piques a lot of people's interest. Maybe that'll be the game that we all play together after not playing Redfall. What do you think? Have you been kind of keeping up with this? Is it driving the interest for you?
No, I haven't followed it too closely. I did check out some Twitch streams of people playing the game. I don't know, like I'm definitely gonna play it. I just like it's not top of my list of things that I'm most focused on. So I think I'm similar to you, where I'll just wait for the game to come out, maybe give it a week or two, and then dip into it. I mean, I hope it kind of becomes the fun co-op multiplayer game that we've been looking for after several kind of disappointing titles coming out and really not delivering on that. So I'm optimistic, but also not in a big rush.
Yeah, and I know Destiny took a lot of inspiration for Diablo in terms of like the cooperative stuff and the loot stuff. So it's good to see kind of the reverse happen now, where Diablo's taking a little bit up from Destiny in terms of the seasons. And I think Destiny does the season model really well. So, shouldn't hurt too much. All right, so that does it for the news that we wanted to talk about and our rebuttal to GQ's top 10 all-time games. And we're just moving on to some closing thoughts. I'll start it off. First thing I want to talk about is something called History, with a IE at the end, not with a Y, not the American history. It's a manga I've been reading recently. It's by the same author that did Parasite. It's based on Eumenes, which was one of Alexander the Great's secretaries, big secretaries, and it kind of focuses on his life story and everything he did to kind of help King Philip, and then now to help Alexander the Great. It's still ongoing. There's only 123 chapters, and it's kind of on hiatus. It's been on hiatus since 2019, which kind of sucks. But I started reading it because I really liked this other manga / anime, Vinland Saga, and that deals with the Vikings and their travels to America, to North America, and all that stuff. So if you have the chance to check it out, look it up. It's very interesting. It's very historic, but also very brutal. If you've read Parasite before, it does have like a lot of gore and action and all that stuff, and I think it's really well done. So check that out. And I always like mangas and stuff like that kind of give you this not rewritten, but just kind of a different view of history with their own style. So check that out. Other thing is, I've really been just playing Hogwarts. I'm still trying to finish the game. I haven't really moved on to Jedi Survivor, which I only played the first world in, because I've been trying to beat Hogwarts. Really fun game, but it's dragging on, and I'm getting to the point where like I'm treating it like Horizon Forbidden West. It's taking a long time, man. I just want to finish the game, but I'm also very like completionist, so I'm doing a lot of shit that if I wasn't doing, I would probably finish it before. But still enjoying the game. I've kind of been keeping myself away from like these betas and stuff. I know Street Fighter's doing a beta with the 8 characters, which we'll probably get into to warm up before the full official release of the game. I think that's the only one we'll be doing really. The Diablo 4 didn't really want to get into that just because one, I didn't want to get addicted to it, and two, I didn't want to be part of some random test to test servers. But yeah, that's the end on my stuff. That's all I've been doing. What have you been doing?
All you've been doing. I'm impressed that you're playing that much Hogwarts.
I told you, Mike, remember at the beginning of the year, the goal is to finish some games. So I hope you've been keeping tally, because at the end of the year, we got to do our list of games that we finished for the year.
Shit.
But you didn't even remember that.
No, I remember that. No, it's more my shit is more like I feel like I haven't been keeping up a good pace. I got to work on that. Okay. Yeah, I don't have too much. I don't think I've basically specifically been playing Tears of the Kingdom, so I won't reiterate. I've been playing it a lot. I'm gonna continue playing it a lot, and hopefully I can beat it before Final Fantasy 16 comes out. That's my goal. Also Street Fighter 6, which I think I'm definitely gonna play. I did not really play much of the demo. I think probably because I played so much of the prior network test, but it
only had 2 characters too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I thought the World Tour mode was going to be, again, because you can like carry the progress over it. I was just like, okay, like I don't want to do it twice, basically. So, I'll probably check out that network test too. And I'm still playing Honkai Star Rail. I think at this point I'm just kind of like in the grind mode where you just like you log in and you do your like daily quest or whatever, and it's probably like a lot of the same shit you do with certain stretches of Destiny. But so I'm kind of in that mode right now, which I think is fine, but we'll see how much longer I got, where I'll probably just like tune out of it completely until there's a big new patch. But I'm still having a good time.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with Destiny 2 as well, because the new season starts on the 23rd, so in 2 weeks, and it's like I've done everything I can for this season. The new season looks interesting. They're going back to Titan, which is one of the planets, and it's underwater or whatever, and the stuff looks really cool, so I'm just kind of holding off of that. I have also been playing Fortnite, but that's more because of the Star Wars event that's going on right now, so I've been trying to get the Darth Maul skin and all that stuff, and get some clone armor and all that stuff. It's still pretty fun. Still pretty fun.
That's it.
All right, Liz. Look at
that. And I think I will have more
Zelda impressions.
What's that?
Zelda impressions?
Yeah, more Zelda impressions, but actually more jumping back to TV, where we've specifically not been watching any TV. So I guess the specific shows are Succession and Ted Lasso. So we've been holding off until those are done, and then we just want to do like the binge approach to those shows. So I can't really think. Is there any other big TV shows other than Andor?
Well, Barry. That's what I know you like Barry a lot too. So I've been watching that weekly. It's the last season, so that's been going pretty good. There's a couple of shows I do want to check out that I haven't seen, but I have been hearing good things about. One is Silo. The other one is From, which is kind of my mystery type weird shit going on type of show. So I'm gonna check those out in the future. Like I always do, right now I just restarted watching Seinfeld again. Every year I usually watch it 2 or 3 times, so it's this one took a little bit longer.
That's classic.
Classic Hugo, watching Seinfeld again.
Yep. All right, that's it for me.
Yeah, but that's it. That's it for our closing thoughts. Pretty meaty episode. We did have a lot, when you start these discussions about like greatest games of all time and why you like them and why they should be there, It's
I'm
a
just
lot.
glad we didn't do top 100.
Yeah. Sucks to be those guys. But yeah, please, if you have some opinions on those, please share them with us. We'd love to hear what you guys think. And obviously, if if there was one that we missed, we want to see those and kind of be surprised. But make sure you guys check out our website, pressingbuttons.gg. You can get our Discord link from there. You can also go to our YouTube, Pressing Buttons Podcast. You can do our Twitter, Buttons TV. You can do Instagram, Pressing Buttons Podcast as well. We're everywhere, man. Join us.
Not TikTok.
Not TikTok, not yet. At least we're not that young. We might need a youth correspondent. But yeah, that's it for us. Thanks for joining us, and see you guys on the next episode. I'm Hugo. Bye.
I'm Nick. Later.